Tonight, suspicious apartment fire. Fort St. John RCMP have now taken over the investigation. Heating issue. Community Centre in Tumbler Ridge remains closed. And new power. BC's energy regulator given new authority. Good evening and thank you for joining us. And we begin tonight with an apartment fire leading to a large response from the Fort St. John Fire Department. Fortunately, no one was home at the time of the incident, but an investigation into the cause is now in the hands of the RCMP. Well, this is video posted to Facebook. Plumes of heavy smoke coming from the building on 100th Avenue. Fire crews responded to the scene of a second-floor rental unit at around 6 o'clock Thursday night. 5 trucks and 15 firefighters bringing the blaze under control within about 15 minutes. Hydro and gas lines had to be shut off to the building. Firefighters remaining on scene throughout the night to ensure there were no remaining hotspots. The cause is still under investigation. Police have now taken over that investigation. As you can see, an officer remains at the scene of the fire. They've been securing the residents since last night. The police say potentially a suspect was seen fleeing after the fire broke out. Mounties locating that suspect and taking them into custody, where they remain pending further investigation. The incident is believed to be an isolated one. A search warrant and fire investigation will determine the next steps of the investigation, according to the RCMP. Anyone with any information is urged to contact the Fort St. John Detachment or submit an anonymous tip via Crime Stoppers. Well, the heating issue in Tumbler Ridge is causing the community centre to remain closed longer than expected. The district announcing the closure on Wednesday. In a special meeting that night, council had to approve up to $300,000 to get the facility running again. The money was pre-approved from the operating surplus before the adoption of the 5-year financial plan. Now, the money will cover a new boiler, installation, and heater rentals. The cost may be reimbursed if an insurance claim is successful. The building has some heat, but no hot water. A leak in one of the boiler's heat exchangers was irreparable. The centre was expected to reopen today, but that's been delayed till at least Monday, maybe further. Events like a hockey and curling tournament have had to be cancelled. All those impacted by the closures have been notified. If another cold warning is issued by Environment Canada, the town hall will operate on extended hours as a warming center. Earlier this week, we reported that 2 Peace Region wind projects will be accelerated by the province due to the ongoing U.S. tariff threat. Now, the province will be introducing new legislation that's giving the BC energy regulator new powers to move projects forward faster. The new legislation will be introduced sometime this spring. It will allow the regulator to have expanded regulatory authority over renewable energy products like wind and solar. It's in a bid to speed up permit timelines. Energy Minister Adrian Dix making the announcement. He was joined by First Nations and clean energy partners who have signed purchase agreements with BC Hydro. The Stewart Creek Wind Project in Fort St. John signing a 30-year electricity purchase agreement with the utility in December of last year. It's being built in partnership with the West Moberly First Nations. Initial projections expect to see it operational by the year 2028, while EDF Renewables is working with the Soto First Nation to move from fossil fuels to clean energy with the Taylor Wind Project. That's slated to generate power by 2031, was announced last month. The legislation will also make BCER the primary regulator for other projects that is aimed at expanding the electricity grid. The announcement builds on a plan to exempt future wind projects from environmental assessments, according to the province. The BCER will recruit more staff as necessary to help support its expanded responsibilities. Well, he blindsided supporters when he effectively ended the party. But BC United leader Kevin Falcon still refuses to step down. And that has party loyalists like Mike Bernier pushing for his ouster so they can move on and try and rebuild. As Robert Buffum reports, bills are still unpaid and anger remains, but Falcon shows no sign of budging.
It was Kevin Falcon's last public appearance, pulling the plug on his party's candidates, making way for the BC Conservatives, leaving BC United, the official opposition, suddenly gone, mere weeks before the election. Fast forward 5 months, former colleagues demand he resign as leader.
He has now become an impediment to our ability to have a true centrist voice in British Columbia. So he's got to go.
Kirkpatrick says the party needs to fundraise to pay off hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to candidates, volunteers, and vendors for advertising and office leases.
He's not the guy to do it. He's lost the confidence of the people in the party. He's lost the confidence of the membership of the party.
Some candidates, like Megan Brame, got their money back. Still, she had to pay to get signs and BC United paraphernalia like this carted away.
I think it was just the, salt in the wound that kind of drove me more nuts than anything.
Others are still waiting to get paid back for their ads and signs. Kevin Acton is out more than 10 grand and he's suing to be reimbursed.
After the party folded, we didn't really hear anything from anybody for a while, and then we heard that they were having trouble with finances.
Meanwhile, Kirkpatrick wants to reignite the former BC Liberal Party's fortunes under a new leader and provide a centre-right alternative to the BC Conservatives.
Things can change very quickly in politics, as we saw last year with the rise of the Conservative Party.
It's great to see people like Corinne and others that want to try to do the right thing and move the party forward. But it can't do any of that as long as Kevin's clinging on. And I think a lot of us are wondering why he's doing that.
The party tells CTV a leadership race to replace Falcon would have to take place within 28 days of him resigning, a costly venture with its 40,000 members, when its priority needs to be fundraising for its current debts, not incurring new ones.
Robert Buffum, CTV News.
Well, BC's children's representative says that child welfare and social workers across the province are in a state of crisis.
There were a number of things that were deeply concerning to us in terms of the workload, the preparation, the ability to keep up with administrative tasks and ensure that they were getting the supports they needed for their mental health and well-being.
A new report describes the Ministry of Children and Family Development as an unhealthy work environment characterized by stress and burnout. That includes more than a dozen recommendations, including calls for better training and better pay. In a disturbing case in Abbotsford where a daycare operator has been arrested and charged with assaulting children. And a warning, some of our viewers may find details in this story graphic. Police say that 60-year-old Indu Takar is facing 6 counts of assault involving children aged 2 to 6 years old after investigation that began last October. According to court documents, the alleged incidents took place between 2021 and 2023.
When the allegations first came forward, we immediately engaged Fraser Health. Fraser Health deals with licensing and conditions of daycares. So we engaged them right away. They were involved with ensuring the safety of the children and putting conditions in place.
Fraser Health says it's launched its own investigation. The health authorities actively monitoring all 3 licensed Smile and Play daycare center locations, all of which remain open. Takar, who could not be reached for comment, was released pending her next court appearance. She is now prohibited from having any contact with children under the age of 16 and is not to attend any daycare facilities. Members of the Helsik First Nation have begun voting on what the leadership is calling an historic written constitution. The coastal nation says it has been working on this for more than 2 decades. And for thousands of years, the Helsik people lived by a traditional governance system that's centered around hereditary leadership. Under the Indian Act, Canada transferred many powers to elected chief and councils. And if elected and enacted, the new constitution would create a new power-sharing model among hereditary chiefs, elected officials, and the nation's Women's Council.
Institution of our ancient governance system that sustained us for 700 generations. We are looking back to move forward as the Hilfzach, Indigenous place-based people, so we can take care of our future generations.
Online voting is open for members for the next 2 weeks. If adopted, the nation says it'll ratify the Constitution at a feast in Bella Bella in the spring. A couple of weeks after the province of Alberta backed out of a pledge to pay for temporary housing in Jasper, Ottawa has committed $160 million to help rebuild the town. And that includes $30 million to install 320 units of oil field style duplex and dorm trailers in town. Also $9 million to build 240 permanent homes over the next 3 years. There's also a pledge to bring that total to more than 500 apartment-style homes in the next decade.
critical to make sure that Jasperites can stay in their community as we rebuild, and as the municipality plans for the long-term housing solutions and increased density.
The Alberta government is now out of the housing picture in Jasper, but it's still committing $8 million in new money. $2 million of that is to set up a shuttle bus between Jasper and Hinton. The rest is tax relief for both the town's budget and to direct support to businesses and homeowners. The Canadian economy added 76,000 jobs in January. The numbers are well above expectation and mark the third consecutive month of increases. The unemployment rate dropped to 6.6%. That's down from the recent peak of 6.8% in November. The manufacturing sector posted the biggest gains, adding 33,000 jobs, but wages went up 3.5%. That's the slowest year-over-year increase since April of 2022. Donald Trump is not joking when he says he wants to annex Canada. Those words coming from none other than the Prime Minister himself. Justin Trudeau making the remark at a closed-door trade summit of Canadian business and labor leaders in Toronto today. Judy Trin was there and has more on what was discussed and the urgency behind it.
200 of Canada's top CEOs and labor leaders, from the auto sector to agriculture to tech, preparing for an economic war, brainstorming how to stop Donald Trump's weaponization of tariffs.
We are in a moment that we have to meet for Canadians.
The Prime Minister was more urgent after the media left the room. Sources say he told participants there's no doubt that Trump wants to turn Canada into the 51st state and that he wants our energy.
What Donald Trump has awakened us all to is one person can change the course of everybody else's prosperity here.
Trudeau told the audience Trump had a 4-page list of grievances, that he wants Canada's critical minerals to further his protectionist goals. This American lobbyist says that may give Canada some advantage.
I absolutely think energy security has been abundantly clear that that's a priority for the Trump administration. I think critical minerals are a huge part of that. Canada is much further along in developing their resources and have more resources than the United States, so it is a point of leverage.
Discussion focused on 3 areas. First, fighting off the 25% tariff threats, then eliminating interprovincial trade barriers and loosening some federal regulations in the next 30 days. Finally, supercharging development. Among the discussions, building east-west pipelines to move oil and natural gas and using more nuclear energy.
We will continue to fight for the sovereignty of our country while strengthening Team Canada right here at home. We are ready for any eventuality that comes our way from a Canada-US perspective.
There was also a lot of discussion about expanding trade beyond the U.S. Canada has free trade agreements with 2/3 of the global community, but companies have relied a lot on the U.S. instead of reaching out. That won't happen anymore.
NATO says Canada's defense spending has increased by 20% in 2024 compared to the previous year. The alliance says the hike by Canada and European members took NATO's total defense spending to more than $485 billion last year. Back in 2014, members of the military alliance agreed on a goal of spending 2% of GDP. Canada has not reached that threshold. Donald Trump has said countries have to spend more, as much as 5%. That message will be delivered next Wednesday when NATO defense ministers meet. All right, please do stay tuned. Our intern Rhett from Mountain Christian School will be right back with weather, but as we head to break, here's a look at today's closing market numbers.